I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, your host. And today with me on the show, I have Steve the Dean Williams from themanmindset.com and DDJ from Miss Andrew Today on YouTube. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, doing pretty good, man. What's up, boys? How you doing? Yeah, we were just talking behind the scenes. Fuck yeah. It's my son. This is my weekend church, hanging out with you boys on the show. Fuck yeah.
Nice.
So today's topic, guys, is surviving and thriving through conflict in life as a man, and particularly as a red pill man, for the things you're going to go through in life with women, with family, with friends, with work, all kinds of shit like that. There's actually a topic suggested by DDJ, and I'm glad he picked it. Yeah, cool. The chat's working. We're still in the new software too, by the way, guys. We're figuring out like how this all works and stuff.
It's a professional show.
Yeah, exactly. With hats. Professional show with hats and paintings. DDJ, though, you want to open up on this topic? I know you had some kind of outline for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that a lot of men have to deal with in life is dealing with conflict and adversity when it comes to, life situations and life circumstances. Because the thing is I mean, when life events happen, we have to be able to manage and we have to be able to deal with that particular type of conflict, when it comes up, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a conflict at your job, whether it's a conflict with your family, whether it's a conflict in your social circle. There's a variety of different types of conflict that we have to deal with as men. And I think there's something important about this that needs to be said as well as sort of a precursor. And that is that when we deal with conflict, we have to be honest about what that conflict really is. Not only do we have to be honest with the people that we're dealing with, we have to actually be honest with ourselves. And sometimes that honesty, that truth, it's uncomfortable. That's like when we talk about red pill wisdom and things like that, and we use the Matrix analogy. What we're talking about is the uncomfortable truth, because sometimes what ends up happening is when we deal with that uncomfortable truth, we can resolve it in a more permanent way. Because what happens is when people don't handle the conflict in a forthright manner and they don't deal with it head on, what happens is that conflict will rear its ugly head up down the road, because everybody's been passive aggressive about it. So sometimes you just have to nip it in the bud, and you have to move forward and say, look, you got to handle conflict. And many people, when conflict comes to your doorstep, especially if it's professional conflict or social conflict, what ends up happening is that people will wrongfully accuse you of creating drama because you're holding the drama creators accountable. Now, I'm not going in any specific direction here beyond saying that if you can't handle the drama that is the consequence of whatever conflict is going on in your life, and you just have to stick your head in the sand and run away from it, that's not what a masculine male does.
Yep.
A masculine male handles the situations that come for them. We don't always get to choose what cards we get dealt, but we can choose how we play those cards, and we can choose how we approach the situation. And in this case, your attitude is most important. So I think that the big challenge is that a lot of people we live in a land where, to kind of use it like a Pinocchio sort of reference, we live in a land of toys, and many men today are more like lost boys because they don't have that multi-generational male mentorship. And so one of the things that happens is that without that multi-generational mentorship, it is a lot more difficult to navigate conflict on your own or through an echo chamber. And so, having guys around us.
Well, let's pause on that. So just to clarify what you're saying, conflict resolution is primarily taught by men, not women. And we've also obviously been lacking that for generations in a row, particularly millennials and Gen X or Gen Zs now. Like, we're the first generations, where we've been raised on multiple waves of feminism like that. And I can speak to that in my own life. I've had to learn conflict resolution myself growing up. I was not taught this. I had very negative examples of this by my father. And I did not have uncles or grandfathers in my life that taught me this. So it's been very self-taught, which works, but it comes with a price. And that price is difficulty and hardship. Learning shit the hard way rather than the easy way, because someone that went through it the hard way fucking taught you. And you had the humility to listen, another skill that lost boys, I think, are not taught. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going, because I think that what happens in life is, especially as a father, you realize that your job as a parent is not done when your child turns 18. Because, as your child goes through those things in life, those different circumstances, whether it be marriage, first time father, those types of scenarios, they're going to come to you for advice. And when they do,
and divorce too,
divorce is absolutely divorce. Well, and again, it's about well, and again, I say this from a man going his own way perspective, but it's about choosing the woman who is willing to invest in you, and it is about the choices that you make. Because what ends up happening is that a lot of these guys, myself included with my first marriage, you get married for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And that's a problem, and that's a problem still with many men today. And I think that the people whose marriages survive, it's a question of mutual investment. It's not a question of, I need to be more alpha, or I need to take more responsibility, or, I need to be responsible for everything that she's done wrong. Because again, when you're dealing with a marriage or a long-term partnership like that, it's just as much of a business decision as it is a personal decision. So I think that when it comes to those types of things, I think that it's important when we talk about managing conflict, managing that interpersonal relationship is extremely important as well. And that's why I think it's important to really talk about, because the other side of it is, men are emotional creatures just like women are. We have feelings, we have emotions, we have things that offend us, we have things that make us happy, we have things that make us appreciative, just like everybody else does. But a lot of people in our community across the manosphere, we don't talk about those things in any sort of meaningful way.
Well, how dare you be a three-dimensional creature with feelings, DDJ? You're supposed to be a masculine robot that just pumps out work and seed or something like that. For the women, the workhorse, and the workhorse and the bull.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go back a second. I heard you say, earlier in this conversation a few minutes ago. Let's get Steven on this. You mentioned self-honesty, and I think the average manager, dude, when he hears that, but based on my experience being in it for so many years, it sounds like an obvious, like, oh yeah, be honest with yourself, and that's going to help your life and improve it, whether it's managing conflict or anything else. But let's kind of explore that more, because I don't think it's anywhere near as easy as men as it sounds at first glance. And I think there's really, my experience over my life, now I'm up to be 31, has been that there's layers to that, layers and layers and layers. The older you get and the wiser you get of how honest can you be with yourself, and how deep are you going to dig on that issue. Steve, do you want to hop in on that, on self-honesty?
Yeah, it's not easy being honest, because you got to look at where these young men came from, or most of them. Some guys have come from a two-parent home, and most come from a single-parent home. And just because you have dad in your house doesn't mean that dad is running things. You probably come from a place where dad is sleeping on the couch, happy life, happy wife, don't make mom mad. You see him give his spine and his balls to his mom, and you just don't understand. But when it comes to the honest truth, unfortunately, a lot of these young men, it all starts in the home. Before they even get out into the world, they're being coddled and blinded by the truth. So when you're coddled and blinded by the truth, how can you be honest about things when she's uploading you to be emotional? She's because when you are getting those emotions, now again, I always say every man has emotions. But women are emotional. That's a difference in my opinion. We are like, if the Cowboys miss a field goal, I have emotions about that. But women are emotional to me. And what happens is women upload emotional things in men. And what happens is that with that,
for better and for worse, that can go both ways.
Well, yeah. Well, and they don't teach their sons also what boundaries are. They don't, and these boys are learning, don't know coping skills. They're being smothered and all this other stuff, and they're being taught that the world is sunshine and rainbows, and everybody's out for your best benefit, and you can go out into the Serengeti and play with the zebras and the elks and all that other stuff. Just nothing but a bunch of lies for these young boys. So then when they walk into the real world, they can't handle how the world is, how the world just doesn't give a fuck about you type attitude. They can't cope with that. So what they do is it seems like they go into their shell, and it's a defense mechanism to say, okay, well, I'm not good. I'm not good enough. So what I need to do is I need to create something that I think that either she or somebody is going to like me better by putting on this false falsetto, putting on this mask, being something what I think the world wants me to be, instead of saying this is who I am, accept me for who I am, and move forward. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of young men out there. They we had a situation last night, Anthony, on the show where a guy's saying, you know what, you need to go ahead and start an act like you're tough, act like you're a man type thing. You don't act. The game's either on you or in you. And if you have it on you, that's the problem.
Oh, wait. I really like that. Hang on. That's good as fuck. On you or in you. That's dope.
Yeah, the game is either on you or in you. What I mean is when it's on
y'all need to get your crayons out, write that shit down. I'm serious.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, when it's on you, that means that you're doing things and looking to things outside of yourself to try to please and get somebody to do this or like you or be attracted to you. When it is in you, then that means you're standing on certain principles. You're not worrying about what the next man thinks or anything like that. So, and I thought, I don't want to be long-winded, but I just wanted to say that I think this is where the problem is coming in, that a lot of these boys, and then like DDJ was saying, see, it's not challenging them. It's just when you say something is wrong, it's like you're going against mommy. You know what I mean? It's like when you say, okay, look, you know what? You need to be more honest. Wait, hold on. What do you mean be more honest? Mommy told me I don't have to be honest. Mommy told me I don't have to do this. And mommy told me that. And then it's like they try to defend a position. You can't defend the truth. The truth will always be the truth, and the truth will always come out. But a lot of these young men just don't understand that. They feel like I'd rather be somebody else and act like people don't recognize that than being who I am.
So I want to cut in on the self-honesty thing. I've always prized being honest, and I think it's a good value. I think it's part of being honorable is honesty. There's times to not be honest when you're dealing with an enemy and things like that. But I think for the majority of life as a man, that honesty in work and life and among men is extremely important. It's extremely important for your own mental health because it focuses you on reality. Honesty, truth, reality, facts. These things are all intrinsically linked, in my opinion. But I've noticed that no matter how much I value honesty, to be more and more honest with myself, to be self-honest, takes perspective, experience, and time. So I thought I was honest with myself at 21, 22, back in the early pickup days, before I found the red pill community, before I got more involved, even more involved with the manosphere above and beyond what I was at that point. So it's been interesting that the older I get, it's not always clear, right? It's not like 2 months goes by and I'm like, oh man, I'm fucking 3.5% more honest with myself. But I've noticed that every couple years that goes by, I accumulate so many kind of reference points in my life and experiences, conflicts, and then conflict resolution, accomplishments, failures, all kinds of things. And as I get older, I'm able to be more honest with myself. And especially too, not only in the moment, you become more powerful, more masculine, but even looking back on your own history. And it's like, where did I fuck up? And where was I not honest with myself in a way that I wasn't even aware of? And that's kind of what I wanted to really dig in with that honesty thing. That's what came to mind when DDJ brought it up, is that being honest with yourself is an evolving process over time. And it really does take maturity and wisdom and life experience, trauma, and then healing from that trauma sometimes to accumulate that and to see it in yourself, to see past the blind spot. I think it's one of the big points with self-honesty that we don't hear enough about, is when you have a blind spot, by definition, you're fucking blind to it. You don't see it. Like DDJ talks about, like a red pill blind spot. That's, I think, analogous, how the fuck you say that, to what I'm getting at here. The red pill blind spot is, looking at leaders in the manosphere and not putting a red pill lens on them, or anywhere else in life too, that you're a fan of a particular community. It doesn't matter if it's the manosphere. You trust someone is because they have values that you share, but it doesn't always work like that.
Well, and let me kind of dovetail on that self-honesty a little bit, and let's build on that. But I also want to talk about, self-trust, but also verification. Mm-hmm. So, one of the things that people have to deal with, I've had a lot of adversity in my life. I've had 2 divorces. I had 2 separate custody fights. I've had a variety of issues come up, before that and after that. And one of the things about self-honesty is that it requires you to look at yourself through a very objective lens. And sometimes the way that you can see yourself the best is to look at the viewpoint of those who don't like you or don't want to be a part of your life. Because sometimes your enemies or the people who don't like you, they tell you the truth about a situation, and you have an opportunity there. You can either use that as an opportunity to improve, or you can use that as an opportunity to shove your head up your ass and live in denial, right? So you have to be able to objectively assess that situation. And the reason that comes with time and age is because you have to have a level of humility. You can't assess your current situation without a level of humility. And you also have to assess your attitude, because a lot of these people, it's like what Steve said. Steve's like, well, you gotta just pretend and be red pill and fake it till you make it type of stuff. At some level, those things are viable tools in the short term. But the reality is you don't fake it. You got to commit to it. And that's the thing is men can commit to things. Men have a sense of duty when they commit to things. That's part of being a man of your word. When you're a man of your word, you're not just a man of your word to the individuals around you, but you have to be a man of your word to yourself.
Damn right.
You have to be able to self-govern. And that means that you have to assess your emotions, and then you have to turn those obstacles into opportunities. And what I mean by that is this. You'll see this, and we see this a little bit on YouTube, but we also see it in life as well, especially with long-term employees. Like, you ever walk into like a job situation where there's one person there who's been there forever, and all they do is bitch.
Yeah.
I hate this job. I hate this. I hate that. All they're doing is they're shit testing everybody else because they feel threatened. So they do that to throw everybody else off their game. Now, so when I talk about this, I talk about it from a perspective: are you going to complain about your situation? Or are you going to create an opportunity to get to a better situation? Because the point is that if you're spending all your time looking over your shoulder, or like what Tupac used to say, if you're looking in the rearview mirror and that's all you're doing, and you're not looking in front, then you're never going to be able to approach your obstacles, because you're going to start reliving all those failures that you had, and you're going to focus on those failures so much that you can't see what's ahead. And so you have to cut out the obstacles, whether that obstacle means, getting rid of alcohol and drugs out of your life, whether it means anything else that's interfering, whether you have people who are constantly negative around you. You have to get rid of those people, and you have to create opportunities. But more
that could
importantly,
even be a relationship, obviously, like, cutting out a girlfriend out of your life, or even a plate or something like that.
Absolutely. You gotta constantly assess. And this is why, I kind of want to dovetail on that too, is that we have to trust but verify. So when we trust one another as individuals, as men, as friends, as acquaintances, as business partners, and even in a male-female romantic relationship, we have to verify that trust occasionally. All successful businesses, people don't understand this, but all successful businesses, they run on accounting principles. You gotta make sure that your debits and your credits line up. Well, how do you know if your business is being successful? You gotta reconcile the books every so often. You gotta say, okay, how much money is going out compared to how much money is coming in? You gotta do that with your relationships as well. You gotta ask yourself, look, is this female, is she an asset or is she an expense? If she is an asset, you keep her around. If she is an expense, well, you cut the expense out, because none of those types of expenses are necessary. But that's the same thing, is you got to assess yourself as well. You have to reconcile your life and say, look, we have to figure out what part of my life, and you say we as yourself talking to yourself, we figure out what part of my life is an asset and what part of my life is an expense. And now I got to work to get rid of those expenses so that I create more assets. This means that you have to learn to be consistent. You have to consistently exercise your body and your mind. And I don't care, what health level you are, you can do this anywhere. I'm not in perfect shape. I'm an older man, but there's a lot of people out there who, they're not in a perfect situation, but they make the best with what they have. And then they slowly, consistently move forward. And as you do that, as you continue to look ahead, as you continue to do the things that you need to do to be looking forward, to create instead of complain, you're going to find that more opportunities come to you. And what you're going to find out is that the issues that you had are not as bad as you thought they were. And when you're already out the other side, everybody else is still complaining and they're still bitching and moaning, and you're already moving on to the next one.
Yeah, it's something I can add to a little bit, is that the older you get, the more perspective you get. Obviously, you've been alive longer on the planet, walking around, doing your thing as a man, or fucking up, or whatever you're doing, right? But as you gain perspective, it really, it reminds me exactly what you just said, that it's usually never as bad as you think it is, and it's usually a lot better than you think it is. And the more shit you go through, the more reference, they call it reference experiences. You accumulate these things, and you can look back on them and be like, yeah, I've been through shit before. I've survived that. I've survived this relationship. I've survived, this fallout, this and that, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. But it's I say that because it's easy to lose sight of that in the heat of the moment, when your emotions are riled up, when your biology's pumping, adrenaline, cortisol, stress hormones, all these things, not just for a few minutes or a few hours, maybe in a particular conflict, but even for days, weeks, and months, as you go through life and navigate, the different challenges you're going to face as a man, assuming you're living the man mindset, of course.
Oh yeah, when it comes down to, for a lot of guys on the stand, man, when we tell you to be honest, we don't want you to mean, well, Steve told me to go into this deal that I'm trying to benefit our company, so I'm gonna tell him all our secrets and stuff. We don't mean that kind of honesty. What we're talking about is being more honest with yourself. Your self-importance and your ego are your biggest enemies, because they're the ones that are pushing you, a lot of you guys right now. And for a lot of you guys, you don't understand this. Every day, I've been learning me and growing since 9 years old, and I'm still haven't learned everything I need to learn. It's a constant. You're constantly learning yourself, but you got to push aside who you think you really are to what you really are. And for a lot of you guys, you think that it's not manly to ask for help, or it's not manly to have to listen to another man teach me how to be a man. Well, let me tell you, I know I'm the shit, but when I get in front of my mentor, I ain't nothing. I ain't nothing but a crumb under his foot. And I shut the fuck up and I listen and I learn and I grow. That's how growth is. But you guys out there that are trying to understand about the truth, the biggest problem is that you lied to the most important person in the world, and that's yourself. A lot of you guys, I understand we love the fact that you're a red pill, but you don't say I'm red pill and you're not living like a man. It's okay to say I'm learning to be one, but you're doing yourself a great disservice when you think you're something more than you're not. And that's not knocking you. It's just being honest, because you're always going to grow. As a man is infinite. You just don't stop. There's no ceiling at the top. You're always growing and you're always adjusting to the world. That's how men are. It's always been like that since the beginning of time. Men have adjusted to the world. But the problem is for not you guys listening, but you look at the enemy. The enemies that are coming to our doorstep are trying to prevent you from learning your truth. Because what they want you to do is they want you to be a clone of somebody. And we are not nobody's trying to make you DDJ or Anthony or me. We're trying to bring something out in you where you can learn, okay, this is where I'm at. And I need to take an honest assessment of where I'm at.
Well, I think the reason for that too, Steve, is clones are weak. I think the reason for that too is that clones are weak. People want you to be weak so that they can control you and they can leech value from you. They can basically use you as a pawn for whatever they want to do.
Oh yeah. Go forth and dislike all of his videos. Okay, we'll do it.
Well, it can even be with a woman who wants to control you. She wants to make like a clusterfuck. They're notorious for getting into your head, finding your values and your weaknesses, and using those to exploit you or control you. Whether that's a nasty divorce where they steal your money, or it can be a lot less than that too.
Right. Yeah. And Anthony, here's the biggest problem. There's a lot of young men are so busy being clones that they want relationships, Anthony. They want to meet women. But when you don't know who you are and you don't know what you stand for and you don't know what your principles are and you don't know when to draw a line to something, then she's going to do it for you. And then you want to get mad at her for treating you bad when you don't ever take a moment and look in the mirror and say, what do I need to be fixed today? What do I need to work on? What do I need to build up? What do I need to go out and do? And again, like I say, Anthony, there's nothing wrong with reading a book. I keep telling y'all guys, read books. But I keep telling you guys, you can grab a book right now and turn 5 pages, and you can see how much energy you put in that. You've got to get out into the world. Books are labeled in time. The world is always moving, and you're not going to learn how to drive, throw a football, swing a bat by reading a book, or get women or be a better man by reading a book. Sure, a book is going to give you some guidelines. I'm not saying that.
What comes to mind here, Steve? For years, in my experience, the pickup community, specifically the pickup artist community, getting better at sex has always been a huge topic, like for very obvious reasons, I think, and probably some not so obvious ones too. And there's been books on this. There's been like Sex God Method from one of our old speakers that was huge back in the day. Different content creators and speakers have focused on this topic, obviously, for fucking decades. But obviously, the most important thing I think guys don't get that are reading about how to, fuck better or whatever, and for whatever reason they want to do that, you're not going to get better at sex by fucking reading about it. Like, period. The amount of improvement you'll get from that is like less, like 1% at best. Yes. It's going to come from fucking. It's going to come from tapping into yourself and being honest with yourself about what you want, and then hashing that out in real life, and with respecting boundaries, breaking boundaries, finding boundaries, thinking up new shit, being creative, being wild, whatever you got to do, right? Yeah. So that's what it comes to mind, just based on what you're talking about here, that like sex is such a good example of that. Reading about it, the fuck's that going to do?
Well, yeah, right. It's not going to show you how to kiss. It's not going to show you how to caress. It's not going to show you how she's going to move to your touch and how you got that flow. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into that, but it
might point you in the right direction. That's all that comes to mind. That's
right, no doubt. Yes, absolutely. Again, that's what I'm saying. Books are great. I'll never tell you don't read a book, but don't just read a book. Read a book and get out there and do things. Combine the two. That's what I'm trying to say. But to finish this, I just want to say, at the end of the day, it's okay to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need help, I need work, and there are things that need to be fixed. It's okay, because hey, guys, I'm a bad motherfucker, and I'm still hard on myself. I don't like who I was yesterday. Matter of fact, I'm starting to not like who I am today, and I need to see how I can fix it to be better than who I am tomorrow. That's the mindset that you got to have, man. Work on you, gentlemen.
Fuck yeah. DJ will happen.
Yeah, I think it's important to really dovetail that. It reminds me of a quote from Muhammad Ali. He said, if you're the same guy at 50 that you were at 20, you wasted 30 years of your life. I think that's really important, because again, we all talk about the generic, it sounds like a platitude of this whole live and learn. But the reason that quote has been around for so long is because it is a truism. And the thing that I think that's just as important here, to kind of dovetail off of both of what you said about getting out there and experience, as men, as the people listening, you have to build your own tribe. You have to actually have people that you see face to face in your real life. Men need to have friends and other men that they can do things with, whether you go shooting together, whether you go and, throw a Frisbee or play football or watch the game, but you have to get out and you have to unplug, and you use YouTube and you use these videos as a tool, but you have to be in each other's face. You have to be face to face and spending time with each other. Because the thing is, isolation kills. It kills friendships. It kills relationships. It kills career. I just read an article the other day online that was talking about how most people in the United States today, I want to say it's like 30 or 40%. That's not quite most, but you know what I'm saying? They don't have any friends at all. They're completely socially isolated.
Wait, what's that number again? Holy fuck.
It's somewhere between 30 and 40% of adults don't have friends.
Holy fuck.
Everybody's so busy looking at their phone and looking at their computer that they don't have friendships anymore. And too many men, especially men with high testosterone, they have less friends than other men around them, because testosterone causes us to isolate. So it is important to strive to at least have a few good connections, because the thing is, the synergy of those relationships that you build will always bring back more value, more bang for the buck than working by yourself. This is part of the reason that I joined the Red Man group, is because there's a synergy there where all the men in the Red Man group, and you look at 21 Convention, the synergy is there. Even if people don't necessarily agree with one another, they agree enough that they work together, and we work together. But the point is this: we only test our ideas and our belief systems by challenging one another as friends and in a respectful way. That's the only way that as individuals that we can go, okay, maybe I had this idea in my head, but that idea is wrong. I need to be humble enough to go, okay, I need to put that mistake aside, and I need to look at the real. Because I'll tell you, if DDJ comes here and Steve the Dean says something that DDJ disagrees with, but Steve the Dean is right, then DDJ has to be humble enough to go, yeah, I had it twisted. I need to look at it from a different perspective. So you have to learn from mistakes, and you have to learn from flawed thinking. And you can't do that in isolation. You can't do that in an echo chamber. And it's just like Steve said, if you read a book and you don't do anything else, then you're not applying the knowledge. You have to get out in the world and apply the knowledge. And it's so bad. Our society is so bad when it comes to this sort of thing. We not only have reality TV so that you could pretend to be living a life that somebody else is living instead of you. We have reality video games. Look, if you want to go hunting, go hunt. Don't play a video game that goes and hunt. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They got a video game. They got a video game for house flipping, and I'm a video gamer. I play the fuck out of video games. But they got a house flipping video game where you could flip houses in the video game. How about you just go flip houses and go swing a hammer and go learn that shit on your own? Because instead of paying somebody else to waste your time, you can invest your time and money on something that's going to bring you a high rate of return. I'm just saying that, look, if you are not out in the world and you are not communicating with men in your life and working together, and you sit in social isolation and you have zero friends or zero applicable knowledge, in other words, you are not applying the knowledge you've learned, you are wasting opportunities. Because you're sitting doing nothing. You can learn it. There's a time to learn. There's a time to educate yourself. But then there's a time to take those lessons and put them into practice. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it comes down to attitude. It's active or passive. Are you reading passively with no intent to take action in response to what you learn? Or are you active about it and you're immediately going to go apply it as soon as you can? And that's down to the man, how you're going to live your life.
Yeah. I just wanted to say this real quick, and this is how important time is to you guys and honesty. Guys, we are 4 months away from the new year. What have you been doing with yourselves? You have 8 months. You have had 8 months to start making the changes. You had 8 months to start soaking up the information. You had 8 months, and you had 8 months to go to the 21 conventions and things like that to learn more. What are you doing with yourself? Because I'm telling you, this is something that I learned. I'll be 48 on Wednesday. I'll be 48 on Wednesday.
Nice.
Let me tell you the thing that I learned the most. I learned that when I was 18, I blinked and I was 25. I blinked again, I was 36. I blinked again, I was 45. Time goes by so fast, gentlemen. Just think how time has gone by right now. We're 4 months away from the new year. It's time to start being honest with yourself, and it is time to start moving in the direction where you want to go, because you can't get back time. And that's the truth, fellas.
Yeah, I want to speak to this too and add some juice to it on a personal level, which I know is taboo sometimes in the manosphere. But this year with my company and the Red Man Group and 21 Studios and the 21 Convention, I pushed the bar higher than I ever have. I pushed my limits. I pushed above and beyond my limits in some ways. We started a new conference type for fathers earlier in the year. I put that together very fast in 90 days, and it worked out. We had about 100 men show up, mostly fathers, obviously, a couple grandfathers, and then a couple aspirational fathers like myself, 20s and early 30s that didn't have kids yet. But you want to do it someday. It's important to you. It's a value. I got that going, and that was a big deal. I mean, this was not, sometimes people see events and they don't really understand what is involved because they're in a completely different line of work. Events are very complex, and they're fucking brutal sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. And so I've been pushing myself this whole year to do we've only done 3 events once before. That was a long time ago, back in 2012, when the company was a lot smaller and a lot different. So this year has been a huge year for me personally. And I've had to push my limits and dig as deep into my fucking soul as I can to accomplish all these things. And part of that now has been pulling off 2 21 conventions back to back, the Fatherhood Patriarch Edition, and then recently Poland, obviously. Steve, you decided that one yourself. And so basically we started a new conference and then did an international conference. Now we have the biggest conference of the year. We actually just announced we had Stefan Molyneux sign on as a speaker from Free Domain Radio, huge YouTube channel with like 1 million subscribers, philosopher, all these things. So this year for me has just been one of the most wild years of my life. And it's been difficult, it's been triumphant, it's been complicated. There's all kinds of drama, obviously, and conflict behind the scenes, also in public, and shit like that. So it's been a wild fucking year, but I know that because it's been so wild and because there's been so fucking much going on, and I've been dealing with that step by step as a man, as a young man becoming an older man. I'm pushing 31 now, whoop-de-doo. But for me, it's a lot different from being 21, and I feel a lot stronger because of it. And I don't know if people see that. They see what we do with these videos and the Red Man Group and all this stuff. But obviously, like these guys watching, I'm a man. I'm a human being. I have my life, my own challenges and difficulties. And I dig as deep as I can to grow as much as I can and become the best man that I can be over time.
May I jump in? I got something to add on that. What Anthony's talking about, and this is something that I've talked about a lot online in a variety of places, he's discussing adversarial strength. So you hear all these guys that they're like, well, I got broken, or, I went through this tragic thing. Like my divorces were rough, right? I went through some hell, just like Anthony went through hell in his own life. I'm sure Steve has had some hells he's had to go through. Everybody has situations in life that they're crucible. They test you in a way that you've never ever been tested before. And the way that a masculine man handles that is he uses that as an opportunity to be stronger. So a lot of people go, oh, I went through that in life, I'm going to go cry. Yeah, and there might be a time for tears when it comes to that. Lord knows when I was fighting my first post-divorce action trying to protect my kids, I cried. Absolutely. Every man has their breaking point. But you learn from those things and you say, okay, I got through that. What's next? What else you got? Right? So once you understand that, that's where adversarial strength comes from. It's strength through adversity. That's why you hear this thing about iron sharpens iron and steel sharpens steel. So one of the ways, or I should say some of the ways that as a masculine male, you can move forward and to really keep the momentum going is to learn a new skill every year of your life. It doesn't matter what that skill is. That skill could be a minor skill. It could be a major skill. It depends on what's going on that year that, gives you that time to do that. So, learn a new skill every year and make one new acquaintance every year. Somebody you can do things with, somebody that you can actually be in their physical space, because it is important to be a part of society and to be able to not just your social life, but your professional life as well. Whether it be networking or taking your brands to the next level if you're an entrepreneur. Because the thing is that when you do these things, what you're doing is you're making investments in yourself. You are contributing to yourself. And when you contribute to yourself and your own personal successes, you contribute to those around you, and people see you as a leader. And now here's the other thing that I think is extremely important as well. I think at some level there are people in the manosphere who are leaders, but I don't like to refer to myself as one. What I refer to myself as is I am a voice. I'm a fallible human being. I'm nowhere near the neighborhood of perfection. I'm just working on my own self and my own path as much as everybody else is. The reason I bring that up is because there are people out there, they get a little bit of popularity, they get a little bit of, some followers coming behind them. And then all of a sudden people think they can do no wrong. There's this sycophantic tribal mentality where nobody tests anybody. And what ends up happening with that is that it creates an echo chamber, and that echo chamber creates stagnation. Mm-hmm. It is important as masculine men to be around people who don't agree with everything you say and everything you do, because the only opportunity you have to grow is through that disruption of disagreement, a respectful disagreement, hopefully, but you want to make sure that those relationships with the men around you are strong enough that you can disagree on the issues, but still maintain that personal and professional relationships as those things come through. Because again, what this is you're surviving and you're thriving through conflict. You're managing the conflict and you're going, okay, maybe Anthony and I disagree on things, and there've been things he and I have disagreed on, but we understand that disagreement on the issues doesn't mean that we can't associate. Yeah. And I'm using that as just kind of a lighter example, because the disagreements that Anthony and I have are real minor. But when it comes to a lot of people in your life, whether it comes to, people you work with for 5 or 10 years, or it comes to, that neighbor that you've lived near for a long time, those things are important to be able to say, look, I disagree on the issues, or maybe my disagreement is based on my own ignorance and now I can learn from this person. These are opportunities. And when I say being a part of society, the other thing that people miss out on is how many people know their neighbors? Yeah. How many people know their neighbor's first name, or the people on their block? If you've been living someplace for 2 years, you should know, if you live in a house, you should know everybody on your block. You should at least know who they are, what their first name is, what their last name is, if they've got kids, a dog, or whatever. And the same thing with apartment dwellers. You should know at least a couple of the people on your floor or near where you live, because we as individuals, we isolate too much. So we have to be able to say, look, this is how I create value for myself. And you're never going to know what those new relationships bring. I'll tell you right now, I look at my life from 2013 to today, and in 2013, I never imagined I would have the people in my life I have today. And I have some extremely valuable people in my life today who test me, who challenge me, who support me, and who understand the value of relationship. Because again, it's about that investment versus expense. If these people are going to lie to you, if these people are going to take advantage of you, or they're only invested in you because you invest, they can take advantage of some knowledge you have, those aren't people you want in your life unless they bring something to you. Again, anybody who does not invest in you, cut them out and move on with your day. But on the other side, there's a lot of people out there who, for whatever reason, maybe that guy next door, he's 3 doors down, and you just say hi, and his name is Jim, and you just say hi for like 2 or 3 years, and then one day you sit and you talk with him, and you find out that this guy is like the most amazing person on the planet, and both of you have things to offer each other in a friendship and maybe even a professional relationship. But had you never said hello to that person, had you never been open to that communication, you would have never known what opportunities were there. And that's what all I'm saying is, so be a part of society, make a new acquaintance every year, learn a new skill every year, because when you contribute to yourself, you contribute to those around you. And if you isolate, you kill everything that you tried to work for.
DDJ, one thing I really liked that you mentioned here was basically utilizing opportunities as opportunities to grow stronger. That sounds like it's obvious, but I think to a lot of men it's not, because some of those opportunities and challenges you need to set up for yourself. I can speak from experience that I've now built 21 conventions 17 times. And the reason I'm able to build new events for fathers and international events in Poland is not just because I've done the convention before, like in Europe, we did it back in the day in Sweden and London and shit, but because I've done this incremental series of events and conferences, literally, for men around the world. And each one of those has been its own unique challenge, whether it's in Florida or Texas or Australia or whatever the fuck. Each one was an opportunity to challenge myself. And I do that every fucking time, essentially, and then grow from that and grow stronger. And sometimes that's through the company growing stronger. Sometimes it expands. We have new relationships, new content, obviously speeches and, recordings and stuff that we publish free to the world. And that's valuable. But internally for me as a leader of the company and the founder and the CEO, I have to grow stronger, and I have to grow with the company and change with the company over time. And I have to walk my own talk and be that example for men too, to the best of my ability. Not just for them, but for myself, to be the man that I am, to be authentic and all that. So it just came to mind when you mentioned growing stronger through adversity and through challenges. And that's my best personal example. I've had relationships, obviously, and the one with Medusa is particularly famous, and all kinds of, interpersonal challenges and conflicts. But above all, it's been the convention itself 17 times now. that have been major events in my life, not just in the manosphere, but my personal life, that set up the stage for me to grow stronger and become more of a man. And this year in particular, I set up, 3 of them, and now 2 of them are done. And I feel stronger from it. I feel like I've changed. I feel exactly what you're talking about, the Muhammad Ali quote of, 50 to 20 or whatever in the 30 years. Yeah, you better damn well be different. You better damn grow. And if you don't, you've wasted a huge chunk of your life before you fucking die, and you don't know when that's going to be. You could die any day.
Yeah, there's no, like I say, there's just no time on life and stuff, and that's why we want you guys to look at who you're following and who you're listening to and see, is that person trying to make me a better man, or is that person have me doing his bidding? I mean, these are things that you got to understand. And like DDJ was saying, he's absolutely right. Look, we don't have to agree on everything, but we respect each other as men, and that's what it's about, man. You don't everybody comes from different walks of life, and everybody has different things that happen and go on in their lives, and their perspective is their perspective. You don't have to agree with me, Anthony, or DDJ. And like DDJ said, there's a few things we don't agree on, but that still doesn't make me say you're less than a man. Doesn't make me say I don't respect you, because men don't behave that way. When you get around men, you can learn some things. It's not just saying, okay, well, it's always going to be my way or the highway. You can learn from other people. And that's what men soak up information. We're like sponges, we soak up. But like they were saying, bad things happen in our lives all the time. I mean, bad things. Matter of fact, just this morning, my dog for 11 years, that has been loyal to me for 11 years, I had to put him down today. But
sorry about that.
No, but I mean, yeah, but that's how life is. But it's things that will happen always in your life, and you got to enjoy the moments. You got to learn how to push forward, but you got to accept those things. But that's what we're saying for y'all guys out there, man. Life is a very challenging thing, and life is always going to come at you, and life is always going to beat you up. But the beautiful thing that you have with these gentlemen here and those that follow the 21 Convention, they don't want you to be them. They just want to guide you and be a beacon so you can guide yourself. That's the difference. And that's things that you got to learn and understand. We all have our trials and tribulations, but at the end of the day, we can dust ourselves off even when we get knocked down and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I want to mention too that I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but with perspective on these challenges and conflicts through life that you're going to navigate as a man, necessarily, like there's almost, it's unthinkable that you're going to go through life without serious challenges and conflicts, right? But part of that perspective, I think, and as you age, it becomes more apparent, is that you're always going to have 99% chance you're going to have more difficult battles ahead of you. Someone's going to die. A relationship's going to end. You could lose custody of your children. You could go through a bad divorce and lose all of your shit. You could become suicidal. You could lose your business. You could have all these professional challenges and whatever the fuck. Life is super complex, and the more you put your balls out there on the chopping block, the more you're going to see that, and learn to respect that, and then navigate it and succeed in whatever you're going to do as a man. But yeah, it's always it sounds demoralizing, I think, at first glance, right? It's like, however bad this is, it's going to get worse in the future. But to me, that's kind of inspiring, because it's like, yeah, whatever's going to come in the future, not only will I handle this right now, I'll be able to handle that too, based on my history of my life where I've been successful. And because I've pushed myself and been honest with myself. When that's with women, that's with work, that's with life.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And the other thing too is that kind of reminds me of what Michael Jordan said. And I know I don't think we should be pushing on success porn, but I think that it's important to say, look, you've only failed when you've given up. So if there are mistakes that have made and you haven't really, you're not successful because it's trial and error. You have to understand, like what Michael Jordan said. He said that, for every time he scored the game-winning point, or for every time he did something amazing, he failed like 5 to 15 other times. And if you talk to a lot of people that are considered successful, that are celebrities, and people that have a skill, like business investors, athletes, they understand that they're going to be remembered for the success, not the 100 times they failed.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, well, if I had a rough life and I'm not successful by what my measure is by the time I'm 30 or by the time I'm 35, I'm never going to make anything of myself. Don't listen to that. That's a lie. There are many people out there who, they paint their masterpiece. They do their whole, their major thing in life. They do it later in life. Yeah. So as men, we age like wine if we take care of ourselves. So those things are important, but also to kind of go back to those relationships is, when we were talking about that, when it comes to relationships where there's mutual investment, as long as everybody's values are similar and complementary, the relationship is always more important than any disagreement. And I say this because this is extremely important. I see people out there, especially on YouTube, who agree to 90% of what each other talks about, right? So the values are very similar. The relationships are there, but the second that there's some kind of disagreement, all of a sudden everybody turns it into some kind of unnecessary war. What that shows is a failure to manage conflict. It's an inability to manage conflict, because once you grow through that disagreement, the relationship grows as strong. It grows stronger as well. Mm-hmm. So, that's one thing I want to talk about. The other thing I wanted to kind of briefly say is that, sometimes when we gain knowledge as men, we can't use it right away. We can't incorporate it into our life right away. However, later on in life, oftentimes that knowledge we get becomes useful. So just because you can't learn it right away doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't learn it. But more importantly, act on the knowledge you do gain. Don't just sit and read books and do nothing, like what Steve the Dean says. Actually do things. Men are creatures of action. Masculine men especially are creatures of action. So don't think for a second that you can sit down there and armchair quarterback everything without experiencing anything in life and think you know everything. Yeah. Because the guys who are the wisest voices, they're the guys who not only learned academically, but they applied that knowledge to their lives. And on top of that, they have strong relationship with people around them so that they can bounce those ideas off of to make sure that, this idea is really good in this context, but not in that context. This helps avoid that echo chamber thing. So again, it's about looking forward. It's about, doing the things to reduce your stress, as far as exercising and having a healthy diet, those types of things. And of course, just live a healthy life, and you're going to find that a lot of these trials and tribulations you go through are going to be less negatively impactful. It's like what Steve said, he had to put his dog down today. That's an 11-year relationship, but unfortunately the circle of life calls, and, he's able to get through that because he's a masculine male who appreciates what his situation really is, not some bullshit somebody else said.
Speaking of that, you mentioned some kind of practical stuff there. We're about an hour into the show, and I wanted to shift gears a little bit to more practical advice and tips for surviving and thriving through conflict. From any perspective you want to kind of take it at. I know personally that what came to mind to me earlier today thinking about this was good habits, not just building them obviously in the heat of the moment, which can be done, but it's not ideal. It's having them before the fact. Not only having them, but then maintaining them through those difficult times. This is something that Socrates taught me years ago during my divorce with Medusa, to maintain daily habits that I had, whether or not they were like extremely important. So at the time I was getting into, I just got into wet shaving with like straight razors and, safety razors and shit like that, instead of the multi-blade bullshit, old school shit. And that was a new habit I'd formed for a few months, and I kept on with that. And I like that a lot. And to this day, I actually shave my neck that way. Obviously the beard's been growing out for a while, which I fucking love. But some habits like that I think are really important. Just a daily routine where you can kind of focus in, slow down, and meditate, and just focus in on the moment, whatever the hell you're doing, even something simple like shaving or whatever the fuck you're doing. Another one that I think is really valuable that men don't do enough is journal. Something I've gotten into recently is handwriting a journal. For years in the pickup community, I kept a journal for probably like 5 years. But it was typed. I didn't handwrite it. Extremely rarely I would handwrite it. It would be just written. A lot of it was public too at the time. I ended up turning that into like a PDF and all that shit. But those are some of the habits that I have for myself. Wet shaving like that, which is kind of a delicate process you have to learn. Handwriting a journal has been fucking amazing. I love it. It's a new habit I've had for a few weeks now. Other ones that I do personally are stillness meditation, 15 to 20 minutes at a time. You can do different kinds of meditation if you want, active and all this other stuff. But for me, it's just very extremely still meditation has been, fantastic for a couple of years now. And I go for daily walks myself. Every day I walk for at least 15, 20 minutes, which is super simple. But it's something that I picked up a couple of years ago and I really love. Something I got from Steve Jobs. I read about in his biography, just go for all these walks he used to go on with these, business partners and stuff like that. Another one I have that I do every single fucking day, is something that does help me get through conflict, is I have coffee every morning that I hand grind and I make, and I sit outside and I just fucking sit there and drink my coffee and stare off into the world. I watch the kids go by on little bikes, go to school and shit. I watch people drive around the street, whatever the fuck's going on. I just kind of observe the world for 15, 20 minutes like that. Just sipping my coffee, and then I ground by hand with a burr grinder, recommended by Tim Ferriss, one of my little favorite ones. But these are some of the habits I have that I do super consistently, whether my life is going super amazing and everything's fucking firing all cylinders, shit's hitting the fan, the world's going to end, or anything in between. These are some basic habits that I think keep me focused and grounded through any kind of conflict I'm going to face, whether it's like a divorce, business disputes, all kinds of shit. Steve, you want to hop in on that?
Yeah, for me, I like you. I ride I learned from somebody that, just riding your bike makes you feel like a kid again. So I've been.
How about that scooter, Steve? You like that scooter?
Yeah. Oh, I love that scooter. No, that scooter was the shit. That scooter was fun. Man, we were in Poland. A1 got me on that little scooter, man. You know what I would have loved to do? We could have just rode through Poland, dude, just all night, man. That would have been just a great adventure. But for me, I learned relaxing yourself like A1 or Anthony saying. I call him A1, guys. Never mind. Well, like Anthony, he's Anthony. You always he's A1 to me. But what Anthony's doing is relaxing, and sometimes you've got to relax your mind. Sometimes you've got a lot of stresses in your life. And one thing I love to do and I learned to do is I ride my bike. I ride 5 miles a day. Matter of fact, after the show is over, I'm going to ride my bike 5 miles a day. And all I do is just put on my ear sets. I listen to music and I just ride my bike, and just it relaxes you. And then at nighttime, because I have a hard time going to sleep, I listen to classical music. Man, let me tell you, I've been listening to classical music since the 5th grade. And I just love it's peaceful, it's serene, it's quiet. And it also relaxes your mind and stuff. So for me, Anthony, those are just a few things I like to do to relax my mind and get away from it all and just soak up life and see how life is, brother.
DDJ, you have some practical tips you can throw in here for surviving thriving conflict?
Yeah. I talk with friends face to face every day. Every day I'm in their personal space. Now, whether it's, drinking coffee with them or doing something else with them or just sit and chit chat, I do that every day. I try to get up early every day. I try to get up early, get everything started and get my day started early. Cause the earlier you get up, the more time you have to get things done. I exercise at the very minimum twice a week because I'm trying to get back in shape as well. And I follow that with a relatively healthy diet of non-processed foods. So, those things are extremely important as well. And I get out in the world at least 3 days a week. So, you got to get out, you got to experience the world. You got to, dust off the Cheeto crumbs for those of you that have them, and then on top of that, I like everybody else, I have an active mind. So sometimes I have a hard time sleeping as well. So I read at the end of the day. And I read both fiction and nonfiction because it gives me kind of a break as to how things are. And I like reading mysteries and things because what it does is it activates my mind as far as critical thinking skills, as well as, problem solving skills and things like that. So those are just some of the things that I do as well.
Yeah. I want to tag on to the end there. You kind of, inspired me to put it out there. So one of the things I do to survive conflict is I return to my favorite movies. And this is like a large collection of stuff, right? 4K DVDs, Blu-rays, things I have, whatever, right? And I look for, and I say that specifically because I view art. I'm a huge fan of Ayn Rand and objectivism, philosopher and novelist Ayn Rand, author of Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead, all that. I view art as a fuel for man's soul. This is something that Ayn Rand said and was known for in her nonfiction works, as well as I think in her fiction works too. So art is fuel for the soul, particularly through difficult times when you need to fuel your soul. And you need to fill it up with that good masculine fucking juice, right? To kick ass in life and take names and put out fires or start fires or whatever you got to do. So with art though and movies, that's my preferred preference. More so, I do read books, fiction and nonfiction, and some of them are very important to me in my life. The Fountainhead in particular is my favorite book of all time as far as a novel is concerned. But movies in particular, I think, are good bursts of energy like that. 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever the fucking case is. And in particular, I think what they do, it's a really good way to put it, is this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's been around for a while, but it's been talked about a lot in recent years in the manosphere. AJ Cortez has been big on this recently at the convention when he speaks. I think what movies do, particularly when they have the masculine lead, is they demonstrate to you masculine archetypes, king, warrior, magician, lover, and they demonstrate masculinity in specific ways, specific to the plot line. And that could be like strength, courage, mastery, and honor, the tactical virtues espoused by Jack Donovan, The Way of Men, in his works. So movies will show you, every movie is different, right? It has different plot line, different characters, different actors, all these things. A good example was, is John Wick. John Wick with Keanu Reeves, now a whole trilogy. Fuck yeah, right? Yes. It's a very masculine movie. It's been very celebrated, even in the manosphere, thank God. But that's the warrior archetype at work. This guy absolutely taps into that and demonstrates it, not only to the character, but the actor. Keanu Reeves did a lot of training in real life for that movie, and it shows in the movie. It shows in the whole series how professional he is and how skilled he is with these things. And you can even see the behind the scenes kind of, documentary of that. How much effort he puts into that and how impressed everyone is with him. I think it's very real. The guy's savage as fuck. That's just one example, but there's, any kind of movie you watch, you'll see these actors and the plot lines and the writing, if it's done well and it's a good movie that you enjoy, will tap into these archetypes that are deep within your brain in evolutionary psychology, according to these writers and these authors. And they demonstrate to you what a man is in a specific way and how he taps into his own masculinity and his own psychology as a man to survive and thrive through some sort of battle or conflict. So movies for me are very useful like that. And even if I've seen them before, I don't care. I'll watch them again because I want to study and I want to learn. I want to understand what happened in this piece of art that has stood a test of time, usually years or decades in the case of movies.
Yeah. Well, A1, I real quick, I watch I watch certain movies like Ray Donovan, Power. I love watching those movies, those no nonsense men. But I wanted to add one more thing to this. One thing, guys, write this down. Get your crayons out. Go to Netflix and type up Fireplace. Very important. There's one thing I always notice when I watch a lot of films like The Tudors or Versailles or things with kings. They would always be by the fireplace, and they will always just take a moment to sit in front of the fireplace. Man, I'm telling you guys, it is nothing like turning all the lights off, opening up Netflix, turning on the fireplace, because it starts from a small amber and it burns to a fire, but it's very soothing and very relaxing, guys. And now I get it. It's nothing like just sitting and looking into the fire, man.
It's funny, Steve. When I bring girls over, sometimes I'll turn the fireplace on Netflix and be like, "Yo, baby, check out the fireplace." I know. Stupid shit. Yes, because it's super rare in Florida to have a fireplace like all that. Some people do, like I did growing up, but most houses don't have it. So when you say that, they're just like, "What?" Like, yeah, check out the fireplace, baby. That's
the romantic mood. But yeah, I think they know we talking about sex. I'm trying to give them advice. But that's real though.
Yeah.
Just don't be the fireplace when it comes time to get tested for STDs.
That's right. Yeah, I can't say I've been perfect either, man. It's funny. The older I get, the more imperfect I become with like condom use and stuff, which is horrible. But
and I think the thing that you guys bring up is extremely important that really needs to be underscored is that men need to have time to contemplate, to just whether you look into a fire or you've got a large fish tank or you go out into the woods or you go bike riding or something, you need time to be able to think and to process what you hear and what you see and even what you say. And to kind of go back through and replay some of that and go, yeah, this is relevant, this is important, or this wasn't relevant, or maybe next time I could say this better, that type of thing. So I think those things are extremely important because if men don't have time to themselves to contemplate, a little solitude to do that, then that increases their stress level unnecessarily. And this is especially important in times of conflict. You have to have that time of solitude. As long as you don't isolate to the exclusion of the people around you, you have to have a little bit of solitude to be able to reminisce and to consider and to contemplate. Because if you don't have that time, then you're just go, go, go. And you have no time to go back and say, okay, now I need to do self-assessment. Was this right? Was this wrong? That kind of thing. And this is where, when we talked about at the beginning of the stream, where if you don't do those things, it's going to create more problems than it's going to solve.
Yeah, I wanted to mention earlier, I almost tapped into it. I was like, maybe later in the show we can address it. I think now's a good time. See, I disagree with you a little bit on isolation, but I think you just kind of cleared that up. That I do think isolation has benefit in use, but it has to be under the context of getting space for yourself to contemplate and to think and to meditate. And I think that's where being solo and going on your own is actually very useful as a man. And it's where self-honesty can really come from, I think, too. Not just other people pointing shit out to you, but taking the time to breathe and be like, all right, where have I fucked up? Where have I succeeded? What am I not looking at, or what do I not want to see about myself or my actions? And that you need to be alone for that to function, I think, a lot of the time.
Yeah, and that's the difference. There's a difference between social isolation and solitude.
Yeah.
All men need some solitude. If you're a type of guy where you can't be alone, where you got to be constantly looking at your phone or constantly looking at your electronics, where you need to be constantly in somebody's face, you need to take time to unplug from all of that, get away from everything, and take that time for yourself. Now, for some men, that might be a period of months, and then they go back and everything's cool. For other men, it might just be short bursts every day of solitude, or maybe, a week of solitude, and then they get back and they do their thing. So yeah, solitude is absolutely a necessary life skill, but social isolation to the exclusion of everybody, that's a problem.
I remember even when I split up with Medusa, I purposely avoided women for probably like 6-7 weeks. Which doesn't sound like a lot of time, but for me it was. Well, it was enough time I felt that I needed to be alone and to be away from women at all. There's kind of a repelling, feeling for that. I was like, holy fuck, all these women need to get out. All women need to get out of my life, with some rare exceptions, like my sister maybe. But that was kind of it was a space thing. I needed space from women, is what I realized. And some guys might be, after a bad divorce, that might be a much longer period of time. They might go months on purpose or not, or years on purpose or not, away from women. But I avoided women for a good 6-7 weeks, and then I eventually hopped on Tinder and started fucking girls. But that was like the minimum amount of space I needed, I think, to get some solitude, some deep solitude to soak in like what the fuck just happened. Which in that case was that I married a hooker in Las Vegas on accident, which was kind of like holy fuck. But regardless of what your situation is, whether it's with women or business or life and friendships and stuff, the space is super useful. And without that, you can get cluttered, I think a lot of guys will have a bad breakup, for example, and they'll immediately hop on, like, they'll go out, they'll get shit-faced, they'll hop on Tinder, Bumble, all these things, try to bang as many girls as they can. And I can speak from experience that I don't think that's the right option to take. A lot of times space is needed to be on your own, to figure out what the fuck happened, to meditate on it, and kind of chew on it like food. And then, you go through that and get it out. Hey.
I'm listening. I just wasn't sure if everybody was done.
No,
you want to jump in?
No, no. He said it. I'm just listening. No, that was deep.
Right. Yeah. Fuck yeah.
So I think we've covered it pretty well. I know the phone lines are open, so if anybody wants to call in, now would be the time to do that.
Yeah, you guys are always welcome to call in. I saw Donovan called in yesterday, which is pretty cool, on the red line with you and George.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, guys, call in 515-605-9373. Share us your stories, man. Let us know what's going on in your life. This is what we're here for, to build and work on these tribes for you guys. So, we're talking to y'all. Come to us. Let us know. Let's talk.
Yeah. In the meantime, let's chat a bit about the upcoming convention. That's sort of a conflict in itself, and that men have to show up. They have to buy tickets. They have to get airlines and flights and hotels and all that. But also, it's a confrontation with other men. It's the offline manosphere. It's where men meet up in real life. Once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe, depending how often you do it. Steve, what are you gonna be talking about at the convention this October?
This October, I'm going to be talking about really thought and behavior. I think that's one of the biggest issues that a lot of young men are having troubles and struggles with, and they just don't understand why those two things must be. I call it flow. You got to be in flow instead of chaos. And I'm going to break that down.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man. You killed it in, in Poland. I think it was great. Both
Yeah,
events
I
here,
didn't have the hammer,
yeah, I know. Why didn't you bring it? Just because
I didn't think about it, man. I didn't think about it.
All right, yeah. So I'll answer what I'll be talking about. So in Poland recently at the convention, I talked about the manosphere. That was my closing address, my main speech of the entire event. And my talk in Poland was on the manosphere itself. It was an overview, what it is, where it's going. And I decided to do it because I'd realized no one ever before had given a talk in public that I'd have ever seen on the manosphere, which kind of struck me as odd given that it's been around for 25 plus years. But it's odd, and I think there's reasons for that, though. The community has been disorganized. It's been fractured into these different kind of sub-tribes like MGTOW and PUA and Red Pill and men's rights. But I think that's finally starting to come together, believe it or not. And 21 Convention and Red Man Group are a really good illustration of that, probably the tip of the spear with it. But at the upcoming event, I'm going to be talking about Make Women Great Again, finally, this hat, which I've never actually done before. I announced it in my 2018 keynote at the event, The Future Still Masculine, but it wasn't the main component of the talk. I think in the end, it will be known for that, but it was like a minor portion of the talk. So I'll actually be giving a talk about, it won't be for women necessarily, it'll be for men and why this is important. But I think women will find it very, it'll grab some attention on the internet. I know I see women now that are finally, they're figuring out that we're doing a convention next year for women. And they're the ones who follow the manosphere and stuff, and they're really excited. And they're excited to hear from us as men, I think, probably for similar reasons that men are, right? Lost boys. Men who are lost, who are raised by single mothers and women and all this stuff. These women are in many ways in the same boat. They did not have any kind of guidance growing up. They don't know how to be women. They're stuck as young girls for their whole life, and that has consequences, as we've discussed on the show. So my talk will simply be Make Women Great Again. And I think that'll be the only talk I do at the event itself, other than maybe some, closing, opening kind of stuff to announce the event. But yeah, I'm fucking stoked, man, to give my own talk on it, to put this together, the whole presentation, to announce the speakers, introduce you guys, and have you guys there. This is looking fucking huge. With Stefan Molyneux, Elliot, you, Jack Donovan, Robert Glover, Sean Smith, Ed Lattimore, AJ Cortez, Socrates, Hunter Drew. I mean, the lineup is getting crazy. It's like 21 speakers now, I think. And we're going to add still like 2 more for a total of 23, which might be the most we've ever had. I think we had 23 in 2014, maybe. No, we had like 20
workshops. The workshop.
Yeah, the workshops. Yeah,
sick.
Well, the workshops, people don't know about those that much yet because they're not filmed. So obviously there's no videos of them on the internet, and that's on purpose though. But the workshops are dope as fuck. And I'm hearing from the attendees, they're raving about the workshops even more than the speeches and the dinners and things like that. The workshops, I think, are a new hit for the event, which is the intention, to give like a super exclusive, badass experience above and beyond what we've already done with the event. And that's what the workshops do. And I think those need to see some more highlights at the event for sure. And they're not recorded, they're exclusive for attending the event. And that's part of what makes them special. I know you did one in Poland, Steve, and you did one in Patriarch too, I believe, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You were yelling. Yeah, you were.
Oh yeah. The women next door. Yeah, they didn't, because I was getting it. Ooh, that shit was fun.
The hotel came and got me. They were like, "Hey, like, can you get this guy to stop cursing so much? Like, these women are bitching." And I was like, "Oh my god." They probably didn't say bitching, but that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah. I was, but this is what the 21 convention is about, guys. Is when you get in those workshops, it is really private, hands-on stuff, intimate conversations that unfortunately those women heard a lot of that intimacy and they didn't like what we were saying, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, 21 Convention special too, man. It's for, we're talking here about conflict today on the show, and 21 Convention, I think, demonstrates how to handle that in a really super positive and productive way. There's rarely or any kind of conflict at the event that's negative, but they're like positive conflicts, And that's someone like you doing a workshop and someone asking you a challenging question, or maybe not a challenging question, but a very personal one that they're going to open up to you about in front of maybe 20, 30 other men in the workshop itself, as opposed to the main conference room. But those are conflicts. I mean, when you open yourself up in public like that and other men, that's vulnerability in a useful way of being among men only like that. That's part of why we have it as a masculine and male space, because you can open up like that. And that in itself is like a positive conflict. You're confronting things for yourself, and then other men are being confronted with that impact as well, whatever that story is, or that challenge you're going through, or that life circumstance. Maybe it's fatherhood, maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's just your own sticking point with women that you want to get through as a young man.
Oh yeah.
Okay, DDJ, I would ask you about your speaking at the convention, but I don't know if that'll be happening yet.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'm not going to keep it off the table yet, but let's see how things go. I'm working on something pretty huge behind the scenes that will be absolutely apparent in about, I want to say about 2.5, 3 weeks. So with that said, I want to keep that under my hat right now, but if I can get everything squared away where things are, well, maybe we'll have that talk closer to the convention time, and maybe I'll say something useful. So who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, for those who are not reading between the lines, I'm always pushing DDJ to be a speaker, of course, at the event, gently and politely. And I hope someday, he's able to do that for his life circumstance. And, you'd be doxing yourself, obviously, doing that, photos and videos and all that. But
Right.
I'm all about it, man. I think you'd be a great speaker. And you've demonstrated that, obviously, through your channel, your content, and your contributions here in the Redman Group.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Fuck yeah. Well, guys, that's about it for today's show. I think we can start wrapping it up. Let's see, you want to hop in, Steve?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say to the guys out there, last thing I want to say to those guys, man, I'm not saying this because I really appreciate A1, but I'm telling you, it is an experience like no other. And it's just a guys, when you get an opportunity to go to these conventions, it's not the guy walks off stage and you never get to see him again. Well, that might have happened one time. The guy walks off stage and he never sees, but outside of that one guy, outside of that person, you get to rub elbows with everybody.
Yeah.
You get to, as soon as he walks off the stage, you can walk up. Everybody's approachable. You're not being treated like you're a flunky or a fan. You're being treated like you're a man that's amongst men. And it's something that everybody should experience. That's just all I want to say about that, man.
Yeah, you know what I realized too, Steve? You probably saw this on Twitter a little while ago, but I realized just a few weeks ago that the upcoming convention in Orlando, the final event of the year, is also the final event of the decade for my company, for 21 Studios. Yes. It's also the final event for the Manosphere for the decade.
Wow.
And, when I planned these events out last year and then throughout this year, that didn't really occur to me. I wasn't thinking about, 2019, end of the year, blah, 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 and then 2020. But really, the whole country and the whole world is going through the end of this decade. And every decade, I think, is different from the next. You see that, obviously, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and whatnot. But I think we're going to get some perspective, not only on culture, obviously, like we do with every decade, but I think we're going to get some perspective on the Manosphere itself when we move into the 2020s. And so this event, I think, is a real turning point. It's a turning point in leadership. It's a turning point in the future. It's a turning point in content and ideas and what is going to guide and command the future of the Manosphere itself. And this event, by fate or by chance, the 21 Convention of Orlando, Florida, coming up in October 24 to 27, that event is pivotal, I think, for this moment. And it's quite literally like an axis turning point for all of it. And that's all of us being involved with speakers and the Redman Group and 21 Studios and the workshops and Stefan Molyneux and Elliot and all these guys. It's all kind of coming together into this giant thing. And I'm fucking stoked for it. And it's particularly, it's kind of a shock for me for it to all come together like that, because that wasn't the intention to do 3 events and then we'd wrap up the whole decade. But that's just the way fate has played out. Oh, yeah. And it's the last major event for the Manosphere of the whole decade. And I'm excited to set the stage for the future, for the 2020s. And I really believe that the Manosphere is going to take off. I really think that Jack Murphy, one of our speakers, mentioned this too, that the Manosphere could very soon explode into mainstream awareness and consciousness, which it hasn't done yet. Like a few little tribes have like the pickup artistship, but that's like no one's ever, the average person has very little idea about that and no idea that there's a whole movement organizing, among men and by men, for these issues. I don't know.
That's 1,000.
Yeah, I wanted to say something about that too. This is an extremely important turning point for men everywhere, because this knowledge used to be common. Back in the day, there was no manosphere. There was just men, right? There was no red pill, there was no blue pill. And a lot of the stuff that a lot of guys talk about in the manosphere, a lot of stuff the guys talk about as far as red pill, blue pill, all this was common knowledge. This is what our fathers and our uncles and our friends and everybody else around us, we used to have a lot of male mentors. This was common knowledge prior to this whole change where we, as a society, we emasculated men, somewhere close to 60 years ago. And this idea of emasculating men, now it took this common knowledge and it turned it into like this wisdom now that's now the manosphere. So as it goes mainstream, we're going to start seeing, rather than talking about the manosphere per se, we're going to now start seeing masculine men in society. And I think that's where we all want to go, because what that does is that brings balance back to society and balance to our families and balance to our communities.
Dude, I totally agree. And I think that's what the manosphere is doing. And I think I've mentioned this in my keynotes talks, the future is masculine, the future is still masculine, that you, the individual man, the guy watching this video and attending the conventions and even contributing to the manosphere, the Twitter account or a blog or whatever you're doing, you are the ultimate threat to the feminist establishment because you want to become more masculine, because you want to become a man and the best man you can be. That's a threat because you're becoming more powerful and you're getting in touch with your own nature and getting in alignment with it, which is what feminism and this effeminate anti-masculine culture has done. It's thrown us off of our natural course of being men and being women and creating families and doing all these things, masculine leadership in the culture, right? And there's kind of what you're talking about here, PDJ too, is like, it's a cycle of history, right? We lost our way as a culture, particularly in America, but also throughout the West. And that has had consequences. And now you're seeing the manosphere, I think, as a result of that, to bring it back to a balance that's healthy and positive and based on real life and on facts and on things that correspond to human nature and that make people happy. And that's like, that's having the man mindset, being a fucking man. What does that do? Well, one of the things it does is it makes you fucking happy instead of miserable. Same thing for women, right? You can act like a woman, be feminine, or you can be a bitchy, miserable cunt and try to act like a man and ruin your life. So I think the manosphere, it's making men fundamentally, one at a time, more masculine through these videos and the conferences and the ideas and the books. And it's powerful stuff. And I think that's why it's been attacked so heavily too in recent years and months, whether it's like, they try to blame mass shooters on us or whatever the fuck they want to like label us as, misogynists and all this shit. Now they're saying it's like everything's far right from the manosphere and all this bullshit. They're grasping at straws. They're desperate to attack us and take it down because it's working, because it's actually helping men throughout the country in the ways that they desperately need, I think, right now, in ways that make them more masculine and that push back against all this feminist blue pill propaganda that's been shoved down our throats since we were little babies, little kids. Facts, son. B1.
That's 100. No, that's fact. Facts like a motherfucker. No, that's facts, son. No, that's what it's about, man. What we're trying to do is we're just trying to help you guys improve yourselves the best way we can. You all have greatness in you. You just need a little more guidance in you. And that's what shows like this. That's what the convention is for. That's what the speakers are for. And well, I can't say DDJ is a speaker yet, but that's why DDJ is here as well, to give you great insight and great information to help you become a better man at the end of the day.
Well, and I think the other side of this is that, we as men, we need to get out of our tribe. We need to get out of our echo chambers. We need to get out of our comfort zone, and we need to let that steel sharpen steel. So, that's one of the reasons I'm here, because I'll tell you, I have to lead through example just like everybody else. And so, if I can come from a community that traditionally is unaccepted and be a part of this particular group and still have things to offer and be able to create relationships with people in the areas where we agree and the areas we have common ground, that works better for all of us, because I can't tell anybody don't socially isolate or go out and get into the world if I'm unwilling to do it myself.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. All right, guys, little banner there. Get your tickets now. Oh, I want to make a little announcement too. We'll do this probably next week's show as well. Let me get this banner off. So, final announcement that the Red Man Group is now proudly sponsored by the Fraternity of Excellence from Hunter Drew and Craig James. You can visit look at the description of this video, and you'll see a link to join the Fraternity of Excellence. That link's an affiliate link, and the Red Man Group will get a commission to that. So you can support the Red Man Group by joining the Fraternity of Excellence. That is easily one of the top online men's communities in the world for becoming the best man you can be and striving for excellence in your own life. It's an excellent fucking club. Hundreds of I know been in the chat today. Fuck yeah. He's also, of course, the host of the Patriarchs edition of the Redman Group. So click that link, join the Fraternity of Excellence, and have an awesome time. Be the best man you can be using that service. In addition to that, Cobra Tate's War Room is now an official sponsor of the Redman Group at 21 Studios. There's also a link to join his War Room. That's another online community, although it's a lot different than the Fraternity of Excellence. Definitely check it out. And a lot of my friends and speakers are members in that group, and they absolutely rave about it, how much they love it. It's very powerful, and we'll have Andrew Cobra Tate on the show soon as well. Talk a little bit more about that and the things he has to offer you guys. Great man and great speaker and great entrepreneur, great fighter. So check out those new sponsors, guys. And as always, Tactical Soap is our sponsor. You can get a link. There's a link to buy that in the description. And use coupon code RMG or 21C. Either one will work. And it'll get you 10% off your soap. And you get some Tactical Soap, get your pheromones all amped up, juiced up. And you'll be attracting ladies in no time with a penis that's a mile long. With that said, I'm going to wrap up today's show. This has been episode 78 of the Redman Group, Surviving and Thriving Through Conflict. I'm Anthony Dream Johnson, your host. I was joined today by Steve the Dean Williams and DDJ from Miss Andrea today.
Insert wave here.
Yeah. I'll do the double DDJ. Right.
There you go.